Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We are here today on Monday, February 6, 2023 at 10 a.m. here in the Commissioners' Conference Room in the County Administration Building for our Board of Social Services agenda. And this meeting it will be recorded and broadcast. And we are here with a large group of people. But I'll first introduce myself and those at the, I'm going to just introduce a couple of people at the table, and then we'll kind of go around when you present to have you introduce yourselves. First, I am Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shag McNally. I'm the chair of the Board of County Commissioners, and with me is Larimer County Commissioner John Cafals, who resides in District 1. I reside in District 3, and Commissioner Kristen Stevens will be joining us a little bit later today. She had a previous engagement that's taken a little longer than she thought. Also at the table is our county manager, Lorenda Volker, and we have a large crowd today, amazing staff who do this work of our social services. So I'll just start by handing it off to our Human Services Director, Heather O'Hare. Good morning, Heather, and I'll let you kind of introduce your group, mostly because I don't want to butcher any of their titles or mess them up because they're all amazing. So I'll just let you get started. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Again, Heather O'Hare, Human Services Director, and I'll just have each of them introduce themselves as they speak rather than doing it at the beginning. So you have a packet in front of you that has the agenda. I did want to give a couple of really quick updates as an addition, but wanted to see if there was anything else that the board wanted to add.
Commissioner Qualls, anything else you want to add, sir?
I was thinking, but at this time it appears that I do not.
I do not. Thank you, though, Heather.
Okay. Thank you. So I wanted to give a quick update. We updated the board last week, I believe it was last week, on the changes to SNAP and Medicaid that are coming, and then a very quick update to the long-term care ombudsman program. So for SNAP first, with changes happening at the federal level, there will be changes to the SNAP benefits for recipients that are coming in March. So February will be the last month of what they call max allotment. So SNAP recipients have been receiving additional funds during the public health emergency, and those additional funds will end at the end of February, and then their normal SNAP amount, food assistance benefits, will then start again in March. So we will have a lot of information on our website, on the county's general website, sending a lot of information out to community partners, and then there's also a lot of information that the state is sending to the food assistance recipients directly. So just wanted to make sure that we mention that. And then in May, there are also changes coming to Medicaid. During the public health emergency, individuals were locked into Medicaid, so they couldn't be disenrolled from Medicaid even if they were no longer eligible. And so that change will be coming in May. So all of our existing Medicaid recipients, their cases will be reworked so that we can determine if they are still eligible for Medicaid. So it will take several months to get through that workload, but with the changes to the public health emergency federally, those changes will come in May.
I have a quick question, Heather. That sounds like a lot of time and staff time. So beyond all your other duties as assigned, which is keeping everyone really, really busy, how much more do you think this will add, I mean, percentage-wise, to kind of the workload if you're having to rework all of these? Because I know you guys will be probably very hands-on and really doing what you can to support people. So I'm just curious.
So it's a great question. So our staff work SNAP and Medicaid together. We work it from the family's perspective. We don't silo the programs. So with SNAP, it is not as much of a workload. Unfortunately, it really is a hard stop at the end of February that those benefits will go back to their normal amount. For Medicaid, though, it is a very significant workload, and unfortunately, there are also other changes coming to the Medicaid program that's adding to that workload. So some cases were able to continue with Medicaid annually. They didn't have to be recertified. At the same time that the changes are coming with the public health emergency, all of the cases now also have to be recertified. So there are multiple layers to the workload. And we're taking it day by day. We're running a lot of reports. Our managers meet daily every morning to look and see where we need to shift people around. At this time, we're not looking at overtime. We have 14 months to rework all of those cases, but it will be a heavy lift. So we will, and we're working, I would say, with the state as well to try to make that as efficient as possible and really highlight what changes can happen in the state system that might help to automate some of those tasks.
Great, I appreciate that answer. That information, just sounds like a lot to do without letting anyone kind of, I know you won't lay my throw through the cracks, but I'm just curious, wondering about all these families and kind of that extra stress, and the transition is with two of them happening so close together. It sounds like it could be pretty tremendous changes. So
it will be a very heavy lift, and we know that our SNAP caseload is the highest we've ever seen it for food assistance, and so I would anticipate that our Medicaid caseload will also be bigger than it was prior to the beginning of the pandemic. So we have a lot of data reports that we're able to go through, but it will be a heavy lift for the next 12 to 14 months.
that's certainly a conversation I had with our federal partners this last week at a very large event gathering where I had an opportunity to kind of talk to some of their staff and just talk a little bit about my concerns about the coming year with the changes. So just so you know, I've been kind of planting seeds of curiosity, I guess. So. All right, I'll let you keep going. Thank you.
And then just one quick additional update that I wanted to provide. So the long-term care ombudsman team, this is our very small but mighty team that's led by Amber Franzel, and we report on their data in our activity report quarterly to you. That program has been in the last couple of months moved to CDHS, the State Department of Human Services. So it is, I would say, an opportunity to have a more holistic picture of what older adults need with a full continuum of services now at CDHS. But it is changing what we have access to in the database. It's changing how we're quantifying some of their activities. So you'll see that in the activity report that we have here, but we did want to let you know that that program has been reassigned now under the State Unit on Aging at CDHS.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, we will dive into the remaining agenda items. And we wanted to give you an update actually on senior tax. So I will toss it over to Laura.
Stay on. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Thank you, Heather. So I'm Laura Walker. I'm the Human and Economic Health Director for the county, formerly with DHS for 20 years. And so as I've brought to the board previously on more of an individual basis, we've had some difficulties with our senior tax work-off program over the last several years. So the Board of County Commissioners has funded this program for decades. It was allowable under a state statute that was passed, I think, in 1980-something. And it's been funded at about $30,000 a year for quite some time. And those funds are available for administration of the program, but also the direct benefit to older adults who own their homes to help them offset some of their property tax burden with the county. And so some of the challenges we've had over the years, for the first probably 15 or 18 years of the program, we were unaware that our workers' comp insurance that covers paid employees here at the county was not covering these volunteer employees who still were working an average of 30 hours per recipient at some county facility in some county department or program. And we had a rude awakening to that fact when we had a very serious injury for one of our older adults who was doing an assignment out at one of the reservoirs, actually, had a very serious fall and needed multiple surgeries, and then we discovered that we were going to be paying that out of pocket because workers' comp did not apply. So the biggest disadvantage there obviously was for the participant, but we also realized that we weren't being fiscally responsible or managing our liability, and that was the the wake-up call that we had for that. In subsequent years, there was legislation that was actually ushered through by the Board of County Commissioners at that time and the Assistant County Manager at that time that would allow us to purchase a separate workers' compensation policy just for this population when they were doing their volunteer work for us. So we did do that, and since COVID began, obviously that was not an ideal situation for having older adults join us in the building when a lot of our staff weren't even in the building for months and months, a couple of years, some of them. And so we started looking at a number of different things about this program. We did give grants during the last few years because we couldn't honor the statutory requirement that people actually come in and work in order to earn those benefits, because it's not a grant program. The state statute did not design it that way. It definitely was an expectation that they would work a certain number of hours to earn that property tax offset that we were able to pay them. So in that time, we started talking more with our county attorney and risk management, and what we basically came to is that if the program were going to continue after the pandemic was resolved, both of those subject matter experts here in the county recommended that we have only office assignments, which are not the most popular assignments for this population. As a matter of fact, I was at the fairgrounds for the pancake breakfast during the county fair the year before COVID, and heard a ruckus behind me sitting at the table with my mom and my son eating pancakes, and I didn't know at the time, but a woman had fallen in a big divot that was there on the grounds, broke both of her ankles, had to have an ambulance called, was in a rehabilitation situation after a surgery for about 4 weeks, but I didn't find out until Monday. This was on Sunday or Saturday, whenever the pancake breakfast was. I found out on Monday that she was a senior tax volunteer. And so again, you know, while the most popular assignments are things that are outdoors, things like working the fair or being out at natural resources, it's become both a liability and a safety issue for us to offer those kinds of assignments. The other thing as we were analyzing this program that came to light was for that $30,000 minus some administrative charging to that pot, for the 30 hours average total assignment for each of the participants, which I think the year before COVID was maybe around 80 to 85 participants, the benefit was capped at $400 during that time. So the maximum they could earn was $400. And assessing how much staff time for the county it took, not just in Human Services who previously administered this program, but all the other county departments that would take these volunteers and put them through a little bit of training and supervise their assignments, we had 800 hours of county staff time collectively. And so really with these legal and risk management pieces of advice that we've received now, we just don't feel that the program is sustainable the way that it was designed. Very few counties in Colorado even offer this program at this point, even though it's allowable for any county to opt into it based on the statute that exists. So 2023, actually right now, payments are going out to the people that were involved in the program in 2022. But we removed the application process. We just reassured ourselves that they still were the owners of their properties, but we're making a direct payment in the same amount that people would have gotten in 2022. Those checks are in process. All of the participants have been notified and given rationale for the end of the program. Also provided resources for other ways that they might access community resources to help offset that cost for them, knowing that for most of these older adults, obviously, regular income is not at a level that is fully sustainable for them, or else they wouldn't have participated in the senior tax program up to this point. So we are making sure that those folks have an avenue to get back to us and to get to other community partners to try to find other ways to either supplement their income or reduce their expenses in another area.
Thank you, Laura. Colleagues, do you have any questions about this at this point? Commissioner Stevens.
Yes, I apologize for being late. What are some of the resources that are out there for folks who are looking for that?
So, and actually this was something that, as we've been working through from the Human and Economic Health Office, the housing strategies that we've been talking a lot to the board about and the potentials for us to support folks to stay in their homes and have more stability in housing in general, including older adults. One of the programs I was very glad to see is getting revitalized through Neighbor to Neighbor is the home share program. And so again, home ownership is a critical part of that. So someone has to own their home and then be willing to have a renter join them, which of course offsets expenses for them and provides a little bit of rental income. And that actually is an idea where if the board wanted to consider specifically targeting older adults who are homeowners and finding ways to support them, I would consider doing a budget proposal for 2024 to reroute that $30,000 that the board has so generously been providing all these years, and maybe have it support the home share program at Neighbor to Neighbor. But then we also have a senior tax work-off program in the Thompson School District that Commissioner Shattuck McNally may be familiar with, that a lot of folks who live in Loveland are able to access to do the same kind of thing. That we also have the Larimer County Home Improvement Program, which we continue to provide funding for, which can offer emergency repair and necessary safety repairs to people who own their homes, and a lot of those are older adults who access that program as well. So, obviously 211 is a good repository of all kinds of resources, so certainly that was part of our communication out to these folks as well as a starting point if they just didn't have familiarity with any other community resources.
Does that help?
Yeah, that is helpful, and I would be interested in seeing what that might look like to reallocate that $30,000 to neighbor, just, using it in the same spirit that those dollars have been used in the past, so thank you.
Yes, I think that'd be a great conversation, and talking about the home share program, that is something that Mayor Jackie Marshall Loveland's been really a big advocate for, and she actually doesn't just talk about it, she's actually done it with her own home, and she's doing home share. I think she has 2 or 3 people that she rents out. Yeah. So, I mean, she's actually doing what she talked and really wants to support. So I'm sure she'd be more than happy to talk to us about her successes with that. So, well, great. So is that something we can talk about further at another time at the work session, or something about reallocating that and what that looks like, or with the home strategy?
Yeah, so my idea with that had been to put in a service proposal with the Human and Economic Health 2024 proposed budget, to have the commissioners consider it as part of the budgeting process, whether or not you would want that allocation to happen in that way.
We could also talk about that as at one of the upcoming housing work sessions.
Absolutely.
That sounds like a great plan. Okay, great. I guess, is that all you have, Heather? Or?
It is. I just wanted to thank the board for their support of this program over the years. It's unfortunate that we've run into these difficulties, but we are committed through our housing strategy proposals to continue to think of all vulnerable populations and the stability of their housing, and we know that older adults make up a portion of that, and we won't forget. And so we will continue to look for other avenues to support this population as well.
Thank you, Heather. As you know, that's really near and dear to my heart since being a caregiver for so long, and I know it would be, Lori, I appreciate the feedback and the information on that, and yeah, I think it's something we should keep an eye on, and also what other maybe struggles some of the older adults are having with maybe dealing with their raising with their HOAs and stuff for things that they don't understand all the legal ramifications or the voice. And this happened to some folks I know recently that kind of got away from them, and then they had a big, huge bill at the end of the year. So I think that's something I'd like to talk about as well. So great. Well, appreciate all that information. And yes, I know I know we're disappointed to not be able to continue it as previously due to all these challenges, but it sounds like we have some options to maybe do the same with the same intent, but in a different avenue. So that's good to hear. So, okay, well, great. Well, Heather, I guess we'll move on. And sorry about that, Laura. It's Monday, and I only had 1 cup of coffee. So,
All right, so our next agenda item is to give you an update on where we're at with our strategic plan. We're about 75% of the way through the strategic plan. So we wanted to give you the update, and I apologize, Commissioner Kafala, some of this you've already seen from the State Board presentation when the State Board of Human Services came to visit, but and a lot of this won't be news to you. I want to update you on the progress we've made of the last 3 years, and then let you know what's to come for the next 18 to 24 months or so. So our focus has really been how do we drive the outcomes for our clients by focusing on the wellness and the overall well-being of our staff. It is certainly a collective effort. We overhauled our strategic plan in the spring of 2020. We rewrote our vision, mission, and we added a staff statement. So our vision and mission are very different. When we reviewed it, it didn't reflect a lot of the prevention work that we're doing, both in child welfare and in our older adult services. And so we wanted to make sure that that was included. We also, I would say, highlighted specific language that we are just one piece of a much larger system, and helping our vulnerable residents across the county is shared with our community partners, and we can't do this alone, and it takes all of us together. But then we added a very explicit staff statement that we certainly can't do this without all of our staff, and that we are committed to their professional development, their well-being, resilience, and that we want to ensure that they have opportunities to contribute, learn, and grow every day in their role. So this was incredibly helpful, I would say, for a couple of different reasons. One, it gave us kind of the third leg of the stool, if you will. So we look to this, we reflect on these three statements when we're talking about new projects, when we are working through our budget. We now budget training dollars for every FTE. So it's just helped us to really kind of center our leadership team and our entire department as we look at new things or as we revisit projects that we have right now, to make sure that we are at least moving the needle towards one of these three. Usually it is towards all three together. So our strategic plan, again, is we modeled our process to the Commissioner's strategic planning process. So we have goals and objectives. We wanted that to align so that we knew that as we were working on the projects in human services, that it was supporting your strategic plan and supporting the work specifically around goal 2 in your strategic plan, but there's a lot of overlap across all of the goals in your strategic plan. So we have 3 goals in ours that are really focused on organizational excellence, automation, integration, data utilization. Client engagement is our second goal, really external focus. How are we hearing the voices of our customers? How are we really driving projects to make sure that they have a good experience with us, but hopefully that their experience with us is short-lived, and that they're able to live independently, self-sufficiently on their own without our involvement. And then the third goal is really internal focused, workforce recruitment, making sure that we are recruiting and retaining staff across the board. And a lot of work has gone into that third goal over the last couple of years. So as a result of the work of the strategic plan, the day-to-day of human services looks very different than it did just a couple of years ago. We've changed our facilities approach, so we've talked about that a lot. We've decreased leased facilities, and I'll go into an update on the facilities in a slide to come. But in addition to changing our approach to facilities and really looking at the physical footprint of our department, we were also very intentional to integrate staff in the facilities that we're keeping, so that our child welfare team, that their office isn't solely at the Midpoint campus with our remaining programs having more of a focus at 1501 and in Loveland. They're all integrated now, and so that each program has a presence in each of our offices. Estes Park is a little bit of an anomaly just because it is such a tiny office, but a lot of our work in Estes Park happens in the community rather than from the office directly. We've spent a lot of time evaluating caseloads and workloads, making sure that if we are really focusing with our staff on work-life balance and their resilience, that they also have to have a realistic workload sitting on their desk, so that we're not asking them to utilize these resources, utilize their paid leave if they have the caseload of 2 staff. It just doesn't work, as you can imagine. And so we have grown tremendously in the last 3 years. We have added 86 new positions. So a big chunk of that was the move of our employment services team that used to be with Economic and Workforce Development when those teams moved over to our department in 2020. But it's also been an expansion of our community support specialists that we used to call income maintenance technicians, with additional funding to support all of the work that's coming that we opened our meeting with. We've expanded the child welfare prevention team at the request of our federal partners, wanting to see that work expand beyond the 2 zip codes that we identified initially. We've added staff in our aging and adult services with a prevention specialist and a communication specialist. So we've added positions throughout the programs, again, because of the workload, but also just the ever-changing needs of our community and the customers that are coming to us for resources. And then within some of our vacancies that we already had on hand, we've specialized some of those vacancies with a procurement team that works very closely with the county purchasing department to make sure that we are crossing every T and dotting every I with our several hundred community contracts, that we have competitive processes for our community partners. A lot of work happens in our small but very strong procurement team. And then we've also added communications, training, strategic planning, and legislative resources. Again, really looking at how can we move the department further upstream? How can we move the needle even more with those 3 overarching statements, and make sure that some of these are not other duties as assigned, but really dedicated resources. I would say the legislative and policy staffing has been a significant addition that has certainly already proving beneficial as we track close to 100 bills each year through the legislative process. The day-to-day for all staff looks very different. So we have a hybrid environment. With the impacts of COVID, we realized that we can work remote and quite successfully. So our staff, with the exception of a handful that are in our welcome centers staffing our public lobbies, the rest of our staff are hybrid, with generally 1 to 2 days in the office and the rest of the time remote. The remote work stipends and the bilingual stipends that have come from the board have been significantly beneficial. Really being able to support staff, one, so that they have a setup in their remote office that supports the work. But the bilingual stipends in particular, we have close to 60 staff that are fluent in Spanish and Arabic. And so being able to compensate them has also significantly impacted the diversity of our team. So we really appreciate the support with both of those additional stipends. We do provide equipment to staff at home, so we give them a base equipment package that they take for their remote office, and then we make sure that the in-office workspaces are set up so that staff can really just plug in their laptop and work from the moment they arrive. There isn't a lot of setup and time that's lost as they transition from a remote office back to the office every week. We've issued county-issued cell phones so that staff are able to, before we had all desk phones, and so a family trying to reach a caseworker, for example, was incredibly difficult. We were having to use Google phone numbers to be able to text with clients, to be able to really have communication with our clients from a much more flexible, dynamic, mobile approach. And so the use of county-issued cell phones has really added in that flexibility. But it also gives staff additional tools on that cell phone that we'll walk through here in a second. The use of Zoom has also significantly changed our practice, being able to have quick video calls, video meetings with clients wherever they may be. Some of our, I think, most successful stories are when we've been able to engage other family relatives in a child welfare case when that relative lives out of state. Being able to do that over video is just so much more fruitful than by phone or email. And a lot of additional automation and efficiency tools. So we are working through the final stages of implementing a call center. So being able to use a call center tool that we had several years ago, and then our process changed and we weren't using a call center. We receive close to 400,000 phone calls a year. And so being able to do that much more automated, we'll be piloting some chat and text features of that tool. It's just helping us to be much more responsive with those phone calls as they increase. We have other process tools, so we have implemented HS Connects, Human Services Connects, which is a platform that was developed by Arapahoe County that is a workflow tool for our public benefits programs. So it lives alongside the Colorado Benefit Management System, CBMS, as the state tool, and just helps to automate that work. It helps to track the many, many documents that come in and all of those tasks for those public benefits programs. So those are just a couple. A lot of communications tools we've added, really working closely with IT and making sure that we have systems that help support the workload from an administrative standpoint. So just a quick update. We've talked a lot about our facilities. We are making great progress. So again, in 2021, we vacated 2601 Midpoint Drive. We are working with facilities and plan to vacate 2573 Midpoint Drive at the end of this calendar year. So those were our two leased office locations. And then we have very significant renovations happening to 1501 Blue Spruce and 2555 Midpoint. So today at Blue Spruce is actually the very first day. The building is completely closed, and our lobby and all of our mail functions. Blue Spruce is where all of our central mail goes, and then it's distributed out. Those two teams have moved into modular trailers, while the entire building is getting very significant work. The outside and the windows is really the only thing that will still look the same. So the staff are very excited, but it's a significant project for probably the next 6 months. So we're working through that and making sure that we had a lot of conversations about whether we just relocate the lobby to our Midpoint campus. 1501 Blue Spruce is where most of our public benefits clients go. It's where they're most familiar with us. So we worked with facilities to have a modular approach so that those that come to that location don't have to be rerouted somewhere else. So, like I said, the next 6 months or so, we hope by the end of summer that Blue Spruce will open back up and we'll have an open house for you, for our staff, for our community partners to be able to see it. And again, another significant change there is that child welfare will also have a presence at that location, whereas they have not for a long time.
So Heather, can I ask a quick question here? And maybe my colleagues have a question. With this, I know you said mostly the outside and the windows won't change, but inside. So I've been in that building a few times, and I know kind of you walk in and it's kind of...
It's not great.
It's not welcome. It's not welcoming.
Yes. Yes.
So my vision or my mind is me walking in and having a very welcoming, open, warm, handoff kind of space to direct people where they need to go. Am I correct in my visioning assumption?
Yes. So we have the same vision. I would say it is still going to be difficult to do just within the physical space. So we're adding other strategies into that. So one piece of the lobby itself in Blue Spruce that will be very different is that it's actually going to also have much more safety and security parameters for the staff. So that was another key piece for us. Right now, they're sitting at tables and just have cubicle walls separating the tables. So if something awful were to happen, there really is not current safety from the staff perspective. So it will actually mirror the lobby in Loveland, where they are sitting behind walls and we have a cashier window built out. And but we'll also have to both sides of the lobby family-friendly space where we can also have child welfare visits, or if a family comes in with little ones, they can go into that room and meet with staff rather than sitting out in the larger lobby. But because the lobby is still small in physical space, Jill's team is working on art. So we're doing an art contest to obtain art from clients, from community partners, from our staff that we can hang. We're hoping to have a peak kiosk, a kiosk where someone can walk in and apply for benefits if they haven't done that already. And then Gordon has been working with the Welcome Center team so that they will also be out in front of the desk. So it won't be always sitting behind the desk and behind the glass, but they'll be out helping people navigate the peak kiosk or the child support kiosk where they can make payments. Much more hands-on and really helping them to navigate what the department provides rather than a more transactional, just come to the desk and help across the desk. So we're trying to change process, but also change the physical space itself. And then behind the lobby for staff, we have added many more conference rooms, much more collaborative space. Very similar, I don't know if you've been in the IT office up on the 4th floor, in the corners where they have the high bar top tables and they have whiteboards, and all of our all of our conference rooms will have Zoom technology so that we can have meetings, whether it's with clients or with other staff at different locations. And then changing the break room and moving that to a different area of the building. So really significant enhancements, a completely new HVAC system, completely new roof, a lot of changes to come that hopefully will feel much more welcoming, but we're also approaching it from how staff are working those processes too, so that it goes hand in hand.
Sounds wonderful, exciting. I'm looking forward to that. Let us know so we can get that date on our calendar, so it's getting busy in the summer. Colleagues, do you have any questions at this point to that? Commissioner Kafalis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Heather. I'm wondering if part of updating the processes in the lobby to make it more welcoming and perhaps inclusive, will you also be working with, I assume there are security folks there, and I recall when we went to Pueblo County and their human services building, and the security folks were very involved in helping people get to this spot or that spot. Will we be doing that? And I think we're seeing more of that downstairs, for example, with the security folks.
A little bit. So there is a security guard at the Blue Spruce campus. So that person kind of walks back and forth between our building and then the Health and Extension building. So it's a shared resource for the campus as a whole. But we have added a specific focus for emergency preparedness and staff safety as a strategic plan project that Jill and Gordon will give you an update on here in just a minute. So it's working hand in hand with Tim Fox as the security manager and the security resource that's there, but also making sure that our staff are much better prepared and trained should something happen. So it's a both and approach in each of our, not just for Blue Spruce, but in each of our locations.
So that suggests that there would be some kind of, in addition to all the emergency preparedness and making sure that folks are safe, both the people we serve and the people who work there, will there be some kind of orientation of the security guards so that they understand what is being provided there, what services, and how they might be able to direct someone, to help to make it more welcoming?
Potentially. That's a great suggestion. The security guard that we've had there has been fantastic. really great with staff, with our customers coming in, but we can't take credit for that. We were just lucky that that was the individual that was provided to us, but that's a great suggestion that we can follow up with Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Commissioner Stevens? Okay, great.
So the other location that is going through significant remodeling right now is 2555 Midpoint. So this is the location where the hub is located, where a lot of our juvenile justice work happens. They're on the criminal justice campus, if you will, at Midpoint. And so the biggest change for this location is actually making sure that we have a benefits and community support division presence there, so our public benefits. So we are moving the hub to the back of the building, and then the front of the building where the hub was previously will be our public-facing lobby, so that individuals can get EBT cards, can come in and get child support services, all of the programs that historically have been at 1501 Blue Spruce or in Loveland will now also have a presence there. And so we've had a lot of conversations. We don't quite know yet how much traffic there will be. But in working very closely with Emily Humphrey and her team, we know that there is a lot of overlap in the individuals they serve and the individuals then that need services from us. So I think it will be a very busy lobby. And the renovations there are well underway. They started late last fall. So we're also grateful that we'll be able to open up the public lobby there and the hub before the rest of the staff move in. We are making enhancements to the remaining staff section of the building as well, but we'll be able to open up the public lobby and work through some of those kinks before the entire location opens.
Are you wrapped up with that? I have a quick question.
Yes, go ahead.
Estes Park, near and dear to my heart. Still, no matter what. I'm trying to envision where that that building is, and my concern is knowing, and that's the conversation we're going to have later after hearing from some of the older adults and their struggles a couple weeks ago. I'm wondering about where that building is and if we ever have thought about accessing parts of that senior center that's up and away from the city center. It's almost getting to be busy year round. It wasn't so busy this weekend, but what does that look like in the summer when it's so congested and it's hard for people to get to? Where is that building or where that service is, and how accessible is it during certain parts of the year?
So our approach for Estes Park is very different. So I'll elaborate. We have a committee that's working on how we co-locate with community partners, and I think that will be the best approach for Estes. The office that we have there is very small. We have one full-time person there, and a lot of the work then is shared with Loveland. So there's a lot of work that comes back to Loveland that's worked by our Loveland teams. The building itself is on the east side of Estes, close to the Highway 66. So it is not the best location, but it's in the school district building,
okay.
And the county leases that space. So we are working on a different approach for Estes, knowing that even with the space that we have, it doesn't best meet the needs of the community. So we'll go into that in a little bit with the co-location and taking the services more into the community than from our offices.
Thank you. I'll hold the rest of my questions till then, because you'll probably, in that presentation, answer some of them. So thank you, Commissioner.
I'll tell you, Commissioner, that the primary activity at that facility is largely related to our motor vehicle services. Most everything else is kind of an office that people go out in the community from, like what Heather's describing.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Kofalis.
Thank you. What is the status of the Wellington Human Services Annex?
So we have provided a letter of commitment, if you will. That's really the best way to explain it. That if that community center comes to fruition, that we would have staff located there and provide services there as a co-location model, because it won't be our staff, it won't be our space, it won't be a county building. So it is one of the co-location approaches that we have a team of staff working on.
Thank you, Heather.
So our Loveland office, we have staff that are working out of there. That is really, we made a couple of minor modifications after we took over some additional space from the Economic and Workforce Development Department in 2020. So we have staff that are located there. Our lobby is open and has been throughout the entire time of COVID. And we have staff that are working out of there, again, in their hybrid fashion. So how are we supporting and recruiting, retaining staff differently than we have? So again, we've presented on the peer program. Lori will go into a little bit more detail in just a minute of how we're expanding that. It continues to be a focus. Continues to be owned and developed by staff. We have a team of staff from across the department that are identifying ways to expand it, identifying ways to make it even better as a source of support. So continue to focus on that and partnership with HR about what we can add to it, how can we align and continue to make sure that staff are aware of the benefits from both human services and HR. But in our recruitment and hiring specifically, we've changed quite a bit. So we have worked a lot with HR and have revised job descriptions and qualifications and titles very significantly across several of our large groups of positions. So a lot of work in the social casework series. Thank you for your additional support in the compensation. A lot of work in what we used to call the income maintenance technicians, now community support specialists, making sure that the job descriptions reflected what the work looks like day to day, that it's classified appropriately, looking at the pay of our neighboring counties and the metro counties as a whole to make sure that we are just appropriately aligned. And then changed some titles. So again, the community support specialist title, we are seeing a change in the applicant pool, a change in who is interested in that position. I think removing the eligibility and the technician words specifically from the title just gives a very different perspective to what that job actually does. And we're seeing it in the applicant pool and really we also changed the compensation for that position so that we were more on par with our neighboring counties and paying in line with what they're paying. And so we have seen a significant change as well in the number of staff leaving that position to go work for other counties. And we actually receive a lot of applications from our neighboring counties, which we're grateful for, but I know it is a struggle for them. But a lot of work with HR also using the tool called Textio that flags it for the inclusionary language. It was hard to change a lot of what was flagged just because the vocabulary is very specific to the role, but we did make some changes and we used that tool for other documents. We've used it for some of the early childhood documents of, is the CCAP information really worded in a way that it makes sense to people that aren't intimately familiar with the program? So it's a great tool that we've used for different purposes, but specifically for the job descriptions. And then we have the 2 recruitment videos. Unfortunately, both of those are already outdated. The community support specialist video still refers to them as income maintenance technicians, but it still gives a really good picture of what those 2 key roles really look like in Larimer County that is quite a bit different than they do in other counties. I already mentioned the compensation analysis. We have the full list of all of our job descriptions and job titles, and we're working through that to make sure that we get through every job that we utilize looking at the job description and the compensation analysis in partnership with HR. Our goal is to get through the rest of those this year. Some of them haven't been reviewed in quite some time, so the child support job descriptions are the ones we're working on now to make sure that those, again, reflect what the work looks like day to day. Then once they join our team, they are onboarded very differently. Before, it used to be the hiring manager's role to really onboard them, give them all of the details of here's your equipment, here's where the office is, I'll meet you the first day. We now have a team, some of our peer navigators, so it is existing staff that have signed up for this added role that help to onboard new staff and meet them on that first day, give them a tour of the office, help them set up their equipment. And then those staff spend the first 2 days or so hearing from us as a leadership team. So they meet us on their second day. They get to see how much fun we have with each other, poking fun. And our team has great expertise, but also fantastic senses of humor. So it just helps to onboard them differently, knowing that the work is really important, but we don't take ourselves too serious either, that it's important that we have fun and enjoy working with each other. And I'm excited. Lori Kadrich will be joining us for a new employee orientation session here in a couple of weeks. So it's always open if you want to come and see what those first 2 days look like. But these are a couple of pictures of the welcome box that they also get mailed to them so that they are onboarded to the vision, mission, staff statement, the values that we hold ourselves to every day, just as a way to say, welcome, we're happy you're here, and we're excited for you to join our team. Sure, if you want. Sure.
Okay, good morning. I'm Lori Metz, Division Manager for Aging and Adult Services. I'm going to pop in on this point. As you'll see later when we give an update on our committees, it's these 3 slides, so I won't talk twice about the same topic, I promise. So the Resilience Alliance is a curriculum that has been studied and has excellent outcomes out of NYU when it comes to supporting resilience among particularly child welfare staff. It was brought into the CYF division, Children, Youth, and Family, 10 years ago as a group model that met on a regular basis. There were staff that were participating regularly. There was a licensed clinician that was part of those groups. Again, it is a set curriculum, but people could kind of drop in and out as it became convenient for them. And what they saw in child welfare particularly was a marked increase in people finding resilience in that group and the turnover side of things. And so because of that, we are looking to expand this model across all of our divisions at this point. While we do know that this set of curriculum is particular to child welfare, all of our staff are working with trying to increase resilience in their work because of the secondary trauma. Regardless if you're in a welcome center or you're working as a community support specialist, it's across the department. So that's one of the things that the committee that I have the pleasure of co-chairing is working on.
All right. Thank you, Lori.
Oh, I want to do that one too.
Sure.
Okay. It's funny. Yeah, because this is all later too. So the other piece that my subcommittee is working on is working with our peer ambassadors. Heather mentioned that overall program for employee engagement and retention that we started actually under Laura Walker's leadership in 2019. I was like on that first committee when we went through a lot of iterations of names at that point. But this particular part of that peer program are ambassadors, which are trained staff members that are available to other staff for kind of debrief sessions after what might be a challenging phone call or interaction in a welcome center or with a family member on a home visit or in the community. At this point, we are mirroring the amount of time that they can spend with that peer ambassador with what the EAP benefits are with the county. And those peer ambassadors are also trained on all of those resources that are available, EAP, the mental health support through the county wellness clinic, so that they are aware that they don't have to kind of hold all of that, but they can offer that support out to people. There is a licensed clinician that is working with these ambassadors as well, and they meet monthly to speak and just kind of throw out resource ideas. It has been a great leadership opportunity, I would say, for existing staff to be in that place where they can support folks across the department. It doesn't necessarily have to be within their division. So they'll have profiles. It's up on our internal page so that you can go in and see what time people are available or who you might choose to speak to. We also have 2 supervisors that are trained in this area for those folks to be able to access that support as well. So we're doing a review of this program right now. We are seeing utilization maybe not where we'd love it to be. We did launch in the spring of 2020, so we acknowledge that maybe that probably didn't help with some adoption rate. But I think that paired with the Resilience Alliance and being able to spread that department-wide, that this might be an opportunity for the ambassadors to be involved in that program as well. They have changed their strategy a little bit with working on a more lunch and learn group model, and that has been extremely well attended and very successful. So that's where we are with that.
And Lori, I'll say, from just looking at the website, you make these tools available for people working from home, working from the office. You've done a really good job of making them accessible regardless of where folks are working from. So I think if you could just connect people back to the process, you've got everything in place.
Thank you. I would say, I think one of the things we learned in hindsight, so we started with the peer navigators that onboard staff and the peer ambassadors, but meeting with another staff member one-on-one can be really, you have to be vulnerable, right? And so reaching out to them and having that individual interaction may not be the most comfortable for people. So we're hoping that the addition of the Resilience Alliance in that group setting, where they can discuss similar topics, they can, it has the curriculum along with it. We're hoping that the expansion of Resilience Alliance in that group setting will then also help the peer ambassadors so that people feel more comfortable having that one-on-one interaction. So in hindsight, we have learned a lot in the first couple of years, but again, have a team of staff that are looking to see where can we add to it, where can we tweak things so that it's there and staff know about it. And then one additional piece for the peer program, so we've talked about this in the past, but we do have clinicians on contract from community partner agencies that help support Resilience Alliance and help do the group training and supervision of the peer ambassadors, but we've also utilized them for some individual and team debrief settings when unfortunate, difficult things happen, either in the office or as a part of our casework. So we have them on contract. We have a couple of them that are able to meet with a team and walk through the scenario and the situation and just be able to check in and provide additional resources when it's needed. Nectar, so our staff love Nectar. They really enjoy being able to give real-time shout outs, and it's great to watch and see what people are recognizing each other for. So thank you again for that support. And we also budget additional points for our leadership team every month so that we're able to recognize, good case audits or other activities that happen in the department on top of what we all receive as county employees. And then we're working with HR to also customize what staff can then turn those points in for. So we've been working with them to be able to give 4 hours of admin leave or be able to add things there and receive suggestions from staff all the time of what they would like to redeem their points in. And then we work with HR to customize it for human services.
I see that 480 points to give. I don't think that's fair. I think commissioners should be able to have a few more points because we only get 20 points. And I always have to figure out who I'm going to, so because I could give 20 points every day. So I just have to say, I'm glad you have 408 points, but it's I want more points to give too. So
I have to say the most fun, and it might have been as part of the Nectar Challenge, but I actually spent quite a bit of time, and I sent an individual shout out to every single one of our 75 managers. And I sat and I thought about what do I want to recognize this individual for that was specific to them and not just thanks for your leadership and your management, but so it's fun. It helps, I think, just center myself too about all of the great stuff that staff are doing and then be able to recognize it every day. So
there's great things happening throughout our whole county every day, I have to say. And I actually drove by some out on my road on my way home, and they were like actually there again this morning, and they're just doing such a great job. So I had to pull over and physically thank them all and appreciate the work that they were doing. So it's a great tool. I'm glad, but I'm going to have to ask our county manager about these 480 points.
So I will say that's an investment that Human Services makes. They do buy extra points so that they can give them out. So there's a standard across the county, and then some departments have opted to buy more as part of their reward. So they've stopped doing other rewards and started doing this instead. And Human Services has made that commitment.
Thank you for reminding me that these points cost, but they are fun. So thank you.
And it's a great way when, one, because our department is very large, but also because we are hybrid and assigned to different locations, it's a great way to be able to recognize people wherever they may be working in whatever program.
I just have to give you a little bit of ribbing. So thanks, Heather.
So just a quick update on the SIGB tool. So we've talked about this quite a bit, but we have expanded. So we've we've changed from a pilot to expanding it and making it available to all of our human services staff. So what we heard, we had about 120 staff participating in the pilot this time last year. And what we heard from them is that, yes, it should be expanded and available to everyone, and that supervisors should receive additional information within the tool, but also additional training of how to use the tool in their day-to-day supervision of staff. So again, the questions, we've also added a component of research. So the HOPE research out of the University of Oklahoma is research that is focused entirely on human services staff. And what the University of Oklahoma has found in their research is that resilience is just one smaller piece to a broader framework of HOPE. And that HOPE is different than optimism. HOPE is optimism, but you also have a plan of how you're going to make tomorrow, the next week, the next month better. So what is that plan of how you're going to move those strategies forward? The University of Oklahoma, actually the governor of Oklahoma is now requiring all of the state departments to become HOPE certified. So they're doing this in their transportation department, they're doing it in their parks and rec department, natural resources. So again, it's how you build those plans, how you set those goals, and then come up with the steps to move it forward. So we've added the HOPE questions here into SIGB, and we hope in the next couple of months to work directly with the University of Oklahoma. They have supervisory training, they have leadership training, but they also use this same model in their work with clients. So how are they building those plans with their clients and their customers to be able to move their own individual situation forward? So we're hoping to expand our work with Dr. Ferris and the University of Oklahoma. But the questions we've added here, so it is now 5 areas of research asking questions around how hopeful staff feel, how connected they feel to each other, their job confidence, resilience, and well-being. So I'll go through these quickly because we've presented this a couple of times to you in the past. But we've continued to work with the SIGB team so that the information that we're getting back from the tool is even greater than what we started with. So supervisors now get a SIGB field report. So this goes to the manager. And what isn't included down under Section 3 is that it actually provides the results. So you can see it there. It rates how the team changed over the last week, how the well-being, confidence, or resilience changed, but then it provides specific questions that supervisor can take into individual supervision or into their team meetings to change the outcomes of what their team rated in the last week. So really specific hands-on techniques and tips to the supervisor, in addition to the 2 dashboards that you see there on the right that just show how an individual or how the team might have changed over the last several months, over the last couple of weeks, and how the staff are using the tool that then the supervisor has more information in that dashboard to be able to move the team forward.
Commissioner Stevens.
Yeah, so, and I'm sorry, I can't read that fine. I just went to the eye doctor. Yeah. Things haven't, yeah, I mean, at least there's some diagnosis at this point. So does the supervisor get specific information about individuals, or is there some anonymity in your response? How does that, what does that look like?
So the information that goes to the supervisor is not anonymous. It is identifiable, and staff know that when they use the tool. What the leadership team, what we get is actually in this dashboard and then the next report that I'll show you. So the aggregate that comes up to our level is anonymous or is aggregated so that we see it by program or by division area. We also see it, so when staff set up their profile in SIGB, they answer questions about their age, their race, ethnicity, so we can see if there are differences in different age groups of staff or different demographic dynamics of staff. So staff use the tool knowing that it is not anonymous. The supervisor gets those that feedback every time the staff responds in the tool. And actually, we haven't seen it deter people from using it. And then the information that we're able to get at the leadership level, again, is aggregated by different categories, by different the different categories of the question, so we can see is one team struggling with wellness more than another. And what we found early on in the pilot is it was actually the staff that had been in their role 6 to 10 years that were struggling the most. So it's just providing more real-time information that allows us to have very different conversations and allows us to target specific strategies in how we support the staff different. So Lori's committee, the peer committee, is working directly with the SIGB team to continue to expand this and think about what questions we're asking, how frequently we're asking those questions. And we are going to start taking some of the specific employee survey questions that HR does annually and put those into the tool. There's, it gives you 3 to 4 Likert scale questions that you just scroll along a scale, and then 1 to 2 open-ended text questions. So we're taking the employee survey and pulling out some of those questions maybe that we don't score so well on, and we're going to put those into the SIGB tool so that we can gather that information throughout the year and be able to respond in more real time, but also more specifically with strategies.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Stevens.
Just, do you feel, I mean, I think that you work in an area of the county that people might feel more comfortable doing it. So I'd be interested to see the University of Oklahoma studies on, you know, how Road and Bridge, or maybe a different department that might not be as, and not saying that Road and Bridge isn't open to their feelings, but, you know, just that maybe it's less common in their workplace to do that. Do you have people that maybe don't use the tool as much, or do you feel like you're getting at some pretty honest answers as you ask some of these questions?
We are getting very honest answers. And we have staff who choose not to use it, which is okay. It is not required. It is not, it is an entirely voluntary tool. But as we've thought about it too as a team, even if we only have 70% of our staff using it, whatever strategies we come up with will benefit all 100%. So, but the piece that I think we have learned the most as well is that our supervisors need something different. Our supervisors in some areas are not as comfortable responding to those feelings. And so making sure that they have the training and the tools to be able to respond. We are overhauling, and we're in month 2 of a new annual managerial training session that we're providing to all of our managers 2 hours each month that looks at how do you balance the productivity and the performance along with the people aspects, and knowing that if your staff aren't coming to work at their best, it is going to impact their productivity. And can we, you know, when you start to see staff, maybe they're missing check-ins, maybe it's someone who has checked in SIGB every single day for 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden they don't check in for a week. That alone should prompt questions. So it's just additional information in addition to the productivity, and are they using more sick time, or and pulling it all together to take a different approach, a more person-centered approach, if you will, to our staff, just like we expect our staff to do with our customers.
I have to say, though, the road and bridge crew I encountered on the side of the road were more than happy to share their feelings, so that was awesome, which was great, because I learned a lot. So I just wanted to do a quick time check. Are we doing okay? Are we on pace for what?
Yes, we're okay.
I just, not to rush you, just want to make sure that, that we are where you want to be, so,
Yeah.
okay, thank you. Oh, Commissioner Gonzalez, you have your hands raised.
Thank you, and I know when we started the use of this app, the SIGB, there was a pilot and there was a certain number of folks involved, and then I think the intent was to expand it to all folks in the Department of Human Services. Are we also thinking to expand it to other departments like the Commissioner's Office, or where is that at?
So it is entirely up to you.
It costs money.
It does cost. So again, it is, when I said that we budget and we prioritize things differently based on those three overarching statements, this has been a shift in resources for us. So in reducing our leased facilities, we're able to then repurpose those resources for tools like this, for the compensation changes that we've made. So it is a tool that's available to anyone that would like to use it. I know CDHS is piloting it. Boulder County is piloting it within some of their teams based on the work that we've done. It's a tool that historically has been used with foster parents or foster care placement agencies. We are the first location to use it internally with staff. So there's a lot of development and I think refining of the tool itself, but it's available to any group of staff or within any industry that would be interested.
Thank you. I'd be interested in a conversation with, what kind of process might we undertake to look at, if we were to expand it beyond human services, what are the cost implications, and is there a way to perhaps prioritize certain service areas or certain departments where we know there's, stress levels might be more challenging. So I wonder if, I guess Lorenda's taking notes, and at some point, we could have that conversation.
I know that the SIGB team met recently with Jacob Castillo, and I'm blanking on, is it Carol Salter, who's working on the nurse retention. So they met specific to that work. I think there's a lot of different ways that it can be applied, and I'll connect with.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Yeah, just really quick, just one more comment. Be curious if there's any way to discern any kind of correlation between how folks rate these indicators, in relation to current events. We know that in the community, there's a lot of anxiety, mental health related issues certainly for youth. And I would suspect that, there might be current events that might push down the well-being indicator. Or any thoughts on that, Heather? Is that something you guys are looking at, or is there a way to discern that perhaps?
There is, but not with exact certainty. So, but one great example, when we had the pilot happening this time last year, it was also the same time that the war in Ukraine started. And we did see spikes in the responses from staff that they were struggling within that same week. We made guesses that that's what it was, that the timing was more than just coincidental. So, but it allows you to be able to ask different questions in supervision too. That supervisor could ask those exact questions of, how are you doing outside of work? I noticed your responses are different this week than last. So it's just more information in real time that gives the supervisor more to work with. So I did skip over a slide. We've talked a lot about the Bridges Out of Poverty and our work with APHSA. Thad and Vanessa are going to expand on that a little bit. So, but I wanted to make sure that we get to the impact, because we are seeing a significant impact. So, like I said, we've grown significantly in the last 3 years. We have our lowest vacancy rate since our department started tracking vacancies 30 years ago. We also have seen a really significant decrease in turnover. So vacancies, again, are empty positions that we don't have someone in today. Turnover is where staff may be moving from one position to the next. So both are good indicators, but I think turnover also shows internal promotions, and so we track them differently because they can tell us very different things. But a significant decrease in both vacancies and turnovers. We also continue to see improvement and success in the many CSTAT performance measures. So at the CCI conference last summer, we were awarded with the Most Improved Award. We continue to see improvement in our client-facing measures as well, because our staff, we're seeing internally that the resources are helping. This is my favorite, though. So we've looked across the employee survey categories for the HR survey for the last 4 years now, and every single measure has increased and increased significantly. So staff, almost a 10% change in staff saying this is an enjoyable place to work. The most significant is in-house staff, their perception of management and how they rate their supervisor, that their supervisor cares about them, their supervisor listens to them, their supervisor asks them their opinions and involves them in decision-making, has increased the most, with 13% increasing from 2019 to 2022. So we still have room for improvement, and so we have a plan. Like I said, we're taking some of these questions and putting it into the SIGB tool. We're also working on a plan to conduct focus groups around a couple of areas in the survey, so that we can continue to move this forward. But we have set the bar high for ourselves. But it is having an impact, just a change in our approach and our perspective of how we support our clients through how we're supporting staff.
Commissioner Kofalas, I see your hand is raised.
Thank you. So, for example, where in 2022 it says 80% of the folks who responded said it's an enjoyable place to work, does that mean that 20% think it's not an enjoyable place to work? And if so, how are you able to extract from that information that might get that number to be higher?
So we have gone through this data with a very fine-tooth comb. So every year we go through this and we spend, we actually just went through this. We had over 800 narrative comments from the survey last November alone. So our team goes through those comments in great detail, spends a lot of time reading them and understanding them. A lot of the context does give you a sense of where the information is coming from, which division, which program, just based on the day-to-day context that we know is happening in those programs. But what I would say in going through this is, yes, 20% said did not choose it's an enjoyable place to work. Most of them were actually neutral. Most of the 20% were neutral. It is a slim margin for the small group of staff that said it is not an enjoyable place to work. So it's being able to dig in more detail, but being able to, I think the HR survey along with the SIGB tool, the two together is where we see the greatest impact, because we're able to get the information from SIGB in real time, and then this is annual. So being able to pull out some of those specific questions and put it into the tool will give us even better information over the next year.
Thank you, Heather. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Stevens.
Yeah, I'm wondering if enjoyable is maybe not the right word to use. And I don't mean that it's not an enjoyable place. Just wondering that are you contented or some kind of situation, because I'm sure the kind of things that some of your staff deal with is enjoyable probably isn't the right term. But do they feel like they're making a difference? Do they feel contentment in their work? I think that might be, and I don't know if that's a HR term, but just thinking about, like, if I had to say, did you have an enjoyable 6-hour meeting where people were yelling at you, I would say no, that was not enjoyable, but do I feel like the work that I'm doing is still meaningful? Yes, and so I don't know if there's a different way to get at that, that maybe because of the nature of the work that you do, maybe people would hesitate to say that, and that's why someone might be neutral. I don't know. I'm projecting a lot here, but just wondering that sometimes you feel good about the work you're doing and you don't necessarily feel like, this is so much fun, right? But it is important, so.
I see Lorinda was going to make a comment.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to remember if this actually is a question or if it is a roll-up of a series of questions, which is what I think it is. I think it's about 7 or 8 questions that feed into this as a trait of employees. So I think they do get at I feel the work I do is important. I'm engaged with my customers and my coworkers. I think they're those kind of questions.
Yeah, each of these categories has a roll-up, and I think you're right. I think it's 8 to 10 questions for each of them, and it's, do you feel supported? Do you feel that your work is making a difference in the community? The overarching category is just the roll-up of those.
Okay, that explains a lot more, so thank you. Thanks for explaining that. So then this is just an amalgam of, or sort of a, yeah, okay.
So that really was to give you an update of what we've been focused on for the last 3 years. So all of that work will continue, as I've shared. And then for the next 18 to 24 months, as we wrap up this current iteration of our strategic plan, we have 4 different committees that have been established to move this work forward. So we've talked a lot about the peer committee, but I'll see if there's anything that Lori wants to add.
Lori Metz again. The only piece that I would add is on the SIGB piece, that we are working very closely with the SIGB team. They're doing end-user feedback groups, meeting with supervisors. What is helpful to have on the dashboard, what's just noise, because, they put it together to see if this would be helpful, and some things were like, that's not very helpful. We'd rather have this. If we'd like to have more questions maybe in job confidence, to your point, Commissioner Stevens, about, do you have the tools that you need to get your work done? And then working with the users to say, what do you not like about it? Is 5 questions too many? Would you like to have more sections that have the opportunity to provide a narrative? Or we met with Shannon Reef, who some of you may remember from her time here at the county, in her new role at SIGB, Jill and I actually both did, saying we don't really have a good baseline right now either. Is there an opportunity to ask the same set of questions for a certain period of time? Or allow people to explain their 3 and saying, so you're never going to get a 5 from me in this category, like 3 is good. So I think there's a huge opportunity on the SIGB side, and then I provided the other pieces too. The other part of this committee that is not listed on the slide is that once all of this has been wrapped up, to Heather's point, in the next 18 to 24 months, we'll relook at our policies when it comes to staff support. Do we have what we need? Do we need to create some new procedures about how people access that support? And then is there areas that we need to increase maybe those clinicians that we have on contract?
All right, thank you, Lori. So the next one is how we are intentionally creating a culture of belonging, so our equity, diversity, and inclusion work. And I will hand this over to Vanessa.
Hi, good morning. Vanessa Field, Division Manager with Benefits and Community Support, and the co-chair for this committee of our strategic plan, along with Thad. So our goal for this committee is to increase equity and inclusion, internal and external, for the department, staff, clients, and the community. And really, this group focuses internally. So we had been kind of looking, when we went through our strategic planning process, looking to see that there are some EDI activities happening in different pockets of the department, and how could we take some of those efforts department-wide. So with that, Thad had his prevention grant work that was happening in CYF. We did some foundational training with Bridges Out of Poverty, as you've heard about before. And then looking at the work that CHSDA and CCI have been doing around their EDI efforts, Heather asked that the consultants that they were working with come and help us specifically with our process with EDI work. So we had a consultant from AHA Process, which is the Bridges Out of Poverty, to really help us with our foundation setting with the committee. So the committee is made up of a group of staff from across the department. Those staff had to apply to participate and tell us kind of why they were interested in this work. So we have a nice group of folks with lived experience, folks who say, I've heard about this and I'm interested, I'd like to learn more, and then representation from every division in the department. And when we first pulled this group together, we really recognized that we needed to create a lot of space for vulnerability in talking about EDI work as it relates to the department, because we recognize that different staff have had different experiences based on their identities in our department. So we spent, I want to say, our first 2 or 3 meetings with AHA process, revisiting those concepts from Bridges Out of Poverty and just opening the door for sharing. And in those meetings, we were able to do some really deep work with staff, recognizing that we're not necessarily the experts either, Thad nor I, but we want to be in the leadership role, we want to be supportive, but really we want to hear from staff. And that there's no wrong thing to share in that space. And that takes time to build those relationships as a collective and in a virtual environment. So it was pretty powerful, those first couple of meetings. And then we had the folks from APHSA who are supporting us with our Advancing Racial Equity Organizational Assessment. So this is an assessment specific to racial equity, and the folks on this committee are the ones that are responding to the assessment. But we had our consultant come and walk through sort of the process of asking our staff to look at our recruitment, our policies and procedures, and assessing from those perspectives. Are you talking about EDI as an organization? And really, where are you in readiness to kind of take the next step on an action plan based on the results of those that assessment? We completed the data gathering process for the assessment in January. So now that information is with our consultant, who's going to then provide us with the analysis from the committee. Let us know what did the committee members say, and then help us to build out an action plan around each of those different categories from the assessment based on where we are and how do we move the needle in those areas. We absolutely recognize that EDI is not something that happens in a vacuum. So we are hope to take what we learn to the other committees, to the work beyond the strategic plan. Thad and I regularly kind of say this work doesn't begin and end with this committee, but we needed to sort of put a marker in the sand of now we're really being intentional around how we're talking about this, what we're talking about, and what we intend to do to move the needle as a department. So we're also planning to conduct a poverty simulation event, and that's a little farther down the line once we get the analysis from our assessment. All new staff are going through Bridges Out of Poverty training. So last spring we had the sort of big event where we had community partners and all of the Department of Human Services staff attend that training. And then after that, in the late summer or so, we had a Train the Trainer event. So we have a number of Human Services staff who became trainers, many of us at the table included in that. And now we're able to then train new staff who get onboarded to the department. They also get that full day training of Bridges Out of Poverty. And then we're also looking at the creation of a consumer council. So that is really to help us understand from the consumer perspective of our, what are we doing? What are our practices as a department that may sort of, I think you all were talking about it already. How does our welcome center, our welcome centers, how do we make sure that those are inclusive spaces for anyone who might walk in? And then we want our staff to feel the same, right? How are we ensuring that our department is an inclusive space for all staff who work for the department? And then reviewing our policies and procedures. Going back and looking, maybe we have written some policies and procedures that don't really address equity, diversity, and inclusion, and we had unintended consequences related to those policies and procedures. That is another level of organizational vulnerability that we have to be able to say we might have made decisions and we got it wrong. And allowing our staff to say, hey, maybe you didn't realize you made this policy and it has these unintended consequences. And our, as a leadership group, being able to say, we're going to revisit that through a new lens and rewrite it. Let's try to get it right this time. Thad and I have talked a lot with the committee about the importance of being able to get it wrong and say that we got it wrong, and really be able to move forward with a perspective of how can we do this better and continue to refine our practices as an employer and as a service provider to the community.
Thank you, Vanessa. So we will have the kind of action report, the results of the assessment back in the next month or so. It'll go to the committee first to really understand those results. It's the information they provided, and then the committee and the consultant will then be providing a report out to the leadership team of here's where we need to go in the next 12 months or so, in addition to the items that Vanessa listed out. All right, so we're going to go through the next two pretty quickly. The third committee is Emergency Preparedness and Staff Safety. That's being led by Jill and Gordon.
Yep. Hi, I'm Jill Mosh. I am Division Manager for Administration, Communication, and Excellence. So I will talk about the first half, and then I'll pass it on to Gordon. We have the most exciting committee of all. We are all starting with foundational training of FEMA, and so I know you guys all wish you were there. So Gordon and I have spent some quality time together on some FEMA training, but all the people on the committee are getting trained in all the foundational training that they would need to understand what it means to have an emergency, internal and external. So we have split into two subcommittees. The first is internal safety and preparedness, which aligns perfectly with Tim Fox relaunching Larimer Prepared. And one of the first things that we did was we looked at the response to an emergency in our buildings and what does that look like. And separately from Tim Fox, we had talked about using a program called SRP, Standard Response Protocol, which was developed by a foundation called I Love You Guys. Their daughter died in a school shooting in Bailey, Colorado. And so the parents actually created this response protocol, which is really easy and simple to understand, has icons and colors associated with what your response should be depending on what the emergency is. So we're working through training on all of those things, as well as how do we get it out to our staff and what other staff can we get involved to make sure that we're prepared in any instance. And while we're doing that, we're going to work on our continuity of operations plan. So we're going to make sure that we can still do all the work that we need to do if there is an emergency in our internal situation.
And I'm Gordon Coombs. I'm the Operations Division Manager. And the other part of our committee is the external emergency. As you all are very well aware, Larimer County is no stranger to emergency situations, natural disasters, and the like. Traditionally, Human Services has had an informal role in how we respond to emergencies. Statewide, and here in Larimer County, that is becoming more formalized. We have worked really closely with the Office of Emergency Management here to now be the lead for what's called ESF 6, which is Mass Care and Human Services section of our Emergency Operations Center. What that means is our primary response is how do we deal with the work that we normally do when it comes to our vulnerable populations, our children in the community, but also mass care and sheltering of people that have been evacuated from affected areas. We will now coordinate that in partnership with American Red Cross and our other community partners. In order to do this more organized, we are are in the process of developing what we call a Department Operations Center. So we will be connected with the EOC, but also have our own internal center that will work in doing the mass care work that we do.
Thank you for that. I know we have had probably too many recent activities who have allowed us to learn from the experiences we recently, and I don't want to identify it, but we had a recent experience during kind of a weather extreme event. I'm sure that's also some experiences or some things we've learned with that as well. I'm assuming, but another opportunity to learn and grow and think about things. I'm just curious about that.
Definitely, that was our first opportunity to be in the driver's seat, and we learned a lot from that experience and coordinated really well with our community partners. And so that was a good takeaway in a very unusual situation.
Thank you.
All right, and then the last committee, so this committee is actually being co-chaired by Sarah Roten, who is one of the deputy division managers under Vanessa's leadership, and Deb DeLuca Forsley, who you've met. She is spearheading the Child Welfare Prevention Grant under Thad's leadership, and they are leading our Community Access and Outreach Committee. So this committee we've talked quite a bit about with you, but they really have two key components that will impact Estes and Wellington both. They are identifying a plan and a strategy to co-locate staff with community partners in their location, as well as exploring a mobile approach so that our teams can have a mobile approach, a mobile office, if you will, in areas of the community where we may not have a community partner that has a brick and mortar location, but so that we can go up into Red Feather or the outer lying areas of the community and still have a presence and still be able to get the resources.
So there's some other sectors inside medical services that are exploring this mobile approach. Maybe offline I can share with you because they have looking at expanding this, and I think this might be another good opportunity to partner with that. So just kind of put that up parking lot if we can talk about that offline. And not to expanding engagement or community access and engagement, and I'm not trying to put on the spot, but we know Office on Aging and getting office, resources, and that's one of the things I want to talk about learning from my community conversation was even though you guys do a great job, it's still kind of that older population is not tech savvy that we're still having trouble for caregivers such as myself or others, how we can expand those resources. So I know, is that something I'm assuming that's part of this, that we're kind of looking to how to increase that access, because I know that's my time on before I became a commissioner, that was always something that was a point, is like, how can we help people understand the resources? So is that, I guess that's something that's also part of this exercise?
Yes, it is very embedded in the work of this team. They are going through a lot of planning, if you will, where they'll be holding different community conversations. They've gathered the information from the Office on Aging team that's been working on the 4-year plan. So they are gathering all of the information we have from our customers, however we may have received the information, and then planning for, here is where we're seeing a need for services, or our caseloads are growing in this area or this program, and we need to have a different approach that isn't tied to a county office. So the Estes Valley, but in particular for older adults, is going to have a significant focus.
I'm really glad to hear that, and I would love to reengage those folks who came and talked to me that are still their comments are still haunting me, basically, to be quite frank, and so I'd love to hear about that more. So I appreciate that. I'm glad to hear about that.
Yes.
So, Commissioner Gonzalez, did you have your hand raised?
Yes. I'm curious regarding the proposed mobile unit. Is the vision for that also to include healthcare services? Because, for example, I'm having a conversation, I think tomorrow, with Dr. Janice Weichselman from up at Red Feather, and I know there used to be a clinic up there. I know there's a desire to have some kind of a clinic, and they even have a proposed site at one of the gates of the Glacier View. So I'm wondering if that's part of the vision, or would that be an opportunity, with Human Services to collaborate with, for example, UC Health or the Health District?
So it is not part of our approach, but it is part of the vision that as we move our services in this direction, that we will bring our community partners with us. And whether it's in our co-location areas, the House of Neighborly Services, or up in Wellington, that we are able to add community partner services to it or to the mobile approach, but the health services piece won't be part of our direct strategy. But as we move our services in this direction, it is going to change our community partnerships and the contracts and the expectations that we have for our community partners to come along with us. I've been having this conversation a lot within the Connect First group that's being led by Bohemian Foundation in alignment with the school districts and making sure that those community partners are aware that we're headed in this direction. And I think there are a lot of entities in the community hoping to move in this direction, and we can stay connected and do it together to have a greater benefit.
Thank you, Heather.
All right, so that is what we have planned for the next 18 to 24 months. And then our next, while we're doing all of this work, our next iteration of the strategic plan, where I would like to see us move, is that it's actually staff helping us to develop the next strategic plan. So we'll be thinking about that parallel to these committees, continuing to move this work forward. So
time
with
check.
that, we are going to shift and want to give our semi-annual fiscal update. So every February, we report out on where we are at in terms of our spending, since we are halfway through the state fiscal year and in terms of the county budget, starting off a new calendar year. So I'm going to turn it over to Gordon.
All right. Again, Gordon Coombs, Operations Division Manager. I'll start off with Adult Protective Services. Currently, we are sitting at about 65% spent. APS continues to be to run high. Our APS admin continues to run high at 68% halfway through the year. We'll be overspent for the year. We don't overspend in client services or elder justice, but just in admin. We've been requesting CDHS make this budget a budget priority in the future. They're looking at changing the formula for allocations and are going to be asking the JBC for more money in fiscal year 23-24.
There's also, sorry, Gordon, there's also a workload study happening that will inform the admin portion of this allocation greatly. So it's on the radar of the Joint Budget Committee. Senator Kirkmeyer's been asking lots of great questions, particular to the adult protective services, and it is an issue statewide.
Yeah, and I'll, as I go through the different areas, reach out to my colleagues if they want to chime in on any of the details around their different areas of expertise. Child welfare, we're currently 52% spending high in staffing and core, but that's intentional. We can cover a lot of that from the other funding and at closeout. We did receive, since this report was put together, a little over $1 million in mill levy to cover the pay increase for social caseworkers. This will be for 23, but we'll need to be intentional in about the 2024 planning for that. So that's child welfare. We're going to CCAP. We're underspent for mid-year at 40%. The total allocation is regular funding and emergency funding together. This is an area where we've put in a lot of work to increase the number of providers. There's also been a great deal of work regarding policy changes to improve support to providers and families. I know we were part of a conversation earlier last week about CCAP, including or continuing to work on that area, increased spending there.
Can I just add, so the biggest driver of why we are only 40% spent instead of 50% is that emergency funding. When that emergency funding goes away, we will be right at our allocation, but the rules are changing significantly with this program in the next 3 to 4 months as the Child Care Assistance Program has to come in line with the new universal pre-K. So there will be a lot of changes to the rules, the payment structure, the support to providers and families that we know will drive spending across the state as well.
Next area is TANF, which is another hot topic. Colorado Works is at 63% at mid-year, which is kind of trending high. We watch other county spending in relation to TANF. We have TANF reserve funding that will cover some overspending, and we're watching it and analyzing it in relation to House Bill 22-1295. Anything more? Got it. Community Services Block Grant, we have until September of 2023 to spend on that. We're on target to have it fully spent. We do have to submit a new plan in October of 2023. That new plan will go into effect in 2024, and that new plan may result in some changes on how the money is spent, but that's kind of to be determined in the coming year. County administration will be overspent in county admin. That's pretty normal. CDHS has not asked the Joint Budget Committee for allocation increases this year and likely will not, so this could impact future allocations as well. And then Employment First. This is on the federal fiscal year, so we're just getting started. It's only, these numbers only reflect October, November, and December. It's a large allocation, but there's a large county match, which is 50% county match, so spending is limited when it comes to this program. Office on Aging, we are on target. We will have a limit on our carryover funds for 22 and 23, or 22-23. Larger carryover for 2020 and 21. Helped to increase provider rates recently to help spend the carryover by June of 2023. Sorry, there's a lot of numbers there, different years. The carryover will limit, could impact the flexibility in the future. I don't know if Lori has more to say about that.
I would just add, so for the Rescue Plan Act stimulus funds, we're only 2% spent there because we are working through an RFP for that with purchasing. So there will be a request for those proposals to be able to allocate that money out to the community. And we have until, like it says up there, September of 24 to spend those ARPA dollars. That was, again, the direct allocation of ARPA dollars from the State Department. And then the $70,900 for the Medicaid match. This remains at 0% for the last several quarters that we have reported to you because we still have not gotten direct guidance from the State Department on what we can actually use these funds for. What they tell us is very broad. You can use them on just about anything that you would like. And based on our internal accounting expertise, we want to be a little bit more cautious so that we're not having to pay those back if we're audited and found that that broad guidance wasn't quite accurate, which we have experienced, unfortunately, in the past. So we don't spend those. We keep them for kind of a rainy day fund if we need them, but we don't have a plan to spend those right now.
And last is OLTC, almost last. This will be, our numbers at the end of December showed a deficit, pretty significant, and it required some shifting of funding to cover it. There's a lot of changes going on related to this program. The state is going out for a new contract on how this is implemented throughout the state. I know Lori's been very busy working on that application, so we'll see some big changes on this program in the future. And then now the last one is A&D Navigator. This is a new program, so we're continuing to spend on it and develop that program out.
And that last one for the A&D Navigator, we have expanded, and it is somewhat of a regional model. We're providing services to Grand County as well because we were underspent, and the Social Security office that Grand County utilizes is here in Fort Collins. So we've partnered with them to be able to receive their applications and help their team navigate the Social Security process here locally. So that is our update, financial update. Any questions on that one? All right. So we took a little bit of a different approach to the department activity report, really because the information has not changed from the last one. We provided you with the full report, and it's also published in the packet for the public. But I did want to just highlight one piece in particular, and that is this one. So you have heard quite a bit earlier in this meeting, but also in prior meetings, the changes coming locally with food assistance, but also the significant increase in the residents that need the public benefits resources, the significant increase in our food assistance caseload. So I just wanted to highlight that here. Again, the way that these graphs, what we've pulled out to be able to show you is the most recent quarter, so fourth quarter of 2022, the quarter just before that, so the third quarter of last year, and then the same quarter a full year before, just to give you two different snippets of context. So in the fourth quarter of 2022, for Larimer County alone, the food assistance benefits that were provided were over $24 million for that 3-month period. It includes two pieces, though, that I wanted to make sure that you were aware. It includes the max allotment, so that is included in that quarter. It also includes the pandemic EBT. So because the public health emergency is still declared at the federal level, it frees up pandemic food assistance benefits for families with young children. So the families that receive free and reduced lunch through the school systems also get pandemic EBT during a federal emergency. So both of those added pots of food assistance are added in there. But what we can see is that just with the removal of max allotment alone, it will be a reduction of $8 million in food assistance just for Larimer County. So it's a significant impact for the households that are receiving the food assistance, but it's also a very significant impact for our local economy. So it is going to be an adjustment locally over the next several months. The state estimates that it's on average a reduction of $90 per recipient per household. So for a family of 5 that's receiving food assistance, going from that max allotment down to their normal benefit amount could be upwards of $400 to $500 a month. So we're working very closely with community partners, making sure that they are aware of what's happening, but also making sure that the food banks and the food pantries, we're partnering as much as we can across the community to try to help those individuals through this, but it is going to be a significant shift in the next couple of months. As we also see the caseloads, so that lighter tan, the much smaller bar there, our TANA for our Colorado Works caseloads, we're seeing those increase significantly as well. So that what we know from emergencies, from recessions in general, is that it impacts those living in poverty for 2 to 3 years after the actual recession. It takes longer for those in poverty to bounce back. And so we're already seeing that 3 years out from the start of the pandemic. So I hate to end on that note, but the rest of the information in this report is again, the same quarterly activity reports. There wasn't anything that really stood out as looking significantly different from the last quarter, but I wanted to highlight that one for you so that you had it.
So I'll add this change in presentation. We used to go through all of these slides over and over, and it was so repetitive. Heather and I talked about just calling out those slides that have something important to report, and so that's how we'll do it from now on, unless you want to go through each slide. They're certainly all there. You can ask questions at any point in time to Heather and her staff. Not limited to this Board of Social Services meeting, but it felt like a better use of your time.
I have a quick question. Yeah, I don't want to end on that bad news, but it's really important that we have this conversation, and I'm curious. I know you guys have been doing a lot of outreach and trying to prepare for this change coming up. Are other counties doing anything different or seeing the same, expecting to see the same kind of impacts? I'm thinking about smaller counties that maybe don't have as much resources, but I'm just curious how the across the state or even across the region kind of conversations are happening, and I'm assuming you guys are kind of talking about it, because I know we've been talking about with other commissioners
having these conversations, especially those who are really interested in human services area?
So we do have a variety of different venues where we're all meeting with our counterparts within the metro region. This afternoon, our leadership team is meeting with the leadership team of Boulder and Weld counties, and this is always part of the conversation. There are, I would say, other counties that are looking at what is left of their ARPA funds and can they provide that to their food banks, to their backpack programs, to Meals on Wheels. But the approach and the strategies are all very similar to what we're doing, just depending on what the resources are in those individual counties. But it is a topic on our agenda this afternoon to hear specifically from Boulder and Weld. As from that regional approach, we'd often serve the same families sometimes moving from one county to the next. So we'll be talking with them to see if they're doing anything different. While we also then just make sure that we're having those conversations with our community partners, that they know what to expect. There's also legislation coming, so we will be before you tomorrow morning to ask for a formal position of support for an Employment First, which is the job training, case management component to food assistance. There are some pieces coming in legislation that are hoping to ease this transition, but there unfortunately aren't resources to be able to sustain the food assistance that the feds have provided.
Thank you. I figured you were, but I just kind of wanted to talk about it a second. Colleagues, do you have any other comments or questions at this point? Commissioner Stevens?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for the presentation and for going over your strategic plan. I think concentrating on employee wellness is having a lot of really good outcomes. It's the right thing to do, of course, but to see that it's really creating a environment where people feel supported and that leads to less turnover and retention and the ability to recruit better, I think is just great. And I know you all have so much on your plates, and so adding this, this piece is, you still have to supervise your staff and make sure everything gets done and paperwork and all the things that you have to do. So adding another layer is obviously more work for all of you, so I appreciate that. But doing this work is so crucial to making sure that people in our that are doing this important work in our community are supported. And so I'm really impressed by what you've shown us today, and just looking forward to seeing what your future strategic plan is. But I think this is remarkable work, and I just want to thank you all for doing it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kafas, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes. Of course, say thank you, express gratitude, echo what Kristen or Commissioner Stevens said. A couple of things that maybe we can follow up on. One is I was curious how Human Services Department is using interns. I know you use interns quite a bit, and that adds a lot of value, so I'm curious to better understand that a little bit. Secondly, I'm curious to know what we do to help refugees, or do we just refer them to places like Lutheran Family Services or the state? I had someone reach out to me recently from Turkey, and I responded with some referrals to the Colorado Refugee Services Program and the Office of Refugee Resettlement, but apparently she's having a hard time getting asylum status and that sort of thing. And then finally, I suppose, thank you, Madam Chair, I would be interested if we could ever find the time, that's Kayleigh's job, I'd be interested in maybe some kind of hands-on session with the SIGB so I can, I don't know, see what it's like to install it onto one's phone or whatever, however you guys do it, and play around with it with one of you. That would help me to better understand, how this is such an important tool.
Sure. So I can say just really quickly, we're doing a lot of work on interns because we see them as part of that pipeline to our workforce. So we have academic interns, but we also have been working very closely with Jacob Castillo and his team at the Economic Development and Workforce Department to utilize TANF interns and their other employment intern types that aren't tied to an education. So we have been working on that over the last several months. Refugee services is difficult because unless they have some type of status, refugee or asylum status, we are almost entirely prohibited from using any of our resources because of the federal funding. So it is often starting with a referral to a community partner until they get that status, and then there are different resources we can walk them through after that. And then we'd be happy to go through SIGB.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. We're out of time, but I guess I'll be brief because I wanted to kind of echo my colleagues' statements. Is just very impressive with the work that you're doing. Very excited to see the amount of support to staff and your employees to keep them kind of fueled for doing the work, because this is really important work. We've come through a very unprecedented time. I know we should keep saying that, but it is. We have a lot of things to think about that we're still kind of transitioning out of, or still kind of compensating with as we move forward. And now we have some changes with the SNAP and some of these other programs changing. And I know you guys are working really hard to be proactive and upstream to support a community and your staff and our community partners to help kind of be ready for that next wave of challenges. So I want to just thank you all for the great presentation today. Outstanding work. Very excited to see a lot of the data-driven approaches, and I really enjoy seeing the you as a group and how you all have this wonderful camaraderie and rapport, and obviously you guys too, sounds like you're taking care of each other and helping this is kind of the leadership team helping each other kind of navigate this. And when you're taking care of each other, you're helping take care of your staff as well. And so I really do enjoy seeing you all here today. And I know it's a big deal to have all these amazing high-level staff here. So I wanted to thank you for the presentation and your work. And I will look forward to the conversations we have about Office on Aging coming forward. And with that, Linda, do you want to add anything? So I'm got to jump on my next meeting as well. But I want to just thank you all for the tremendous work and look forward to our next conversation. And with that, at 12:02, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.